Hello. Oh, all right. We are here for another Creative Heart of Practice. I'm Kelly Blazer, by the way, and thanks for being here. So people are coming on the lines, and I just want to give you a little orientation as to what we're going to do today. As with every one of these practices, we're going to do a little bit of meditation and chanting actually today, and then we'll move into asana practice. And today is going to be a little bit more asana heavy. Not that it's going to be super intense. I'll always give options for people to do more a gentler practice, but just like a little bit lighter on the teaching and sharing and chatting and all of that, and a bit more intense with the asana. And part of that, the reason for that is that I'm just really noticing that I don't know about you guys, but like my mind just needs to be settled. And so I imagine that's the case for a lot of people. So processing and trying to like take in information intellectually or analytically is just not as easy these days. And I think everybody's kind of in this incredible storm. Oh, there's a kitty outside and it's not mine. It's always so exciting. So I'm going to actually have us begin with a chant. And let's see, you guys hearing me fine? Let me just open up the chat. Let me know if you can hear me or if you cannot. It would ease my mind. Yes. Okay, wonderful. Okay. And the other thing that's important for us to be aware of is that it's the full moon tonight, and that's actually kind of meaningful in the tradition, in the yoga tradition, because it's one of the times that we can most easily extend compassion toward other beings, and particularly toward those who have passed, and those who are who are ill, and those who are, like ill in our own minds, which is a lot of us, and then anyone who's lost loved ones. So because there is a lot of loss happening right now, it's a super important time to do this practice. So technically the full moon is at 7:34 this evening. I'm in California, so I'm in Pacific Daylight Time. So at 7:34 this evening, Pacific Daylight Time is the technical moment of the full moon, but we're gonna do the practice today together. So this is called the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, and if I were super together, I would have it printed out and I would be able to put it in the chat. But I'm just not very together at all. And so we will just work with what we've got. What I will do is afterwards, I will, my hair is getting long, after we sit together, or after this is all complete, I can send out an email with let's see, can I do this today? I'm being very careful these days about not over-promising. And I think then that's maybe a piece of advice I could give. Don't overpromise, especially any of you that are, working with, any of you that are caregivers in any sense. I mean, I'm a therapist, so that's the degree to which I am a caregiver. And that's, it's significant because obviously people's mental health is just all over the place. Sorry, I need to fix this. Because it's bugging me. Okay. Yeah, the light in here is a little funny. You guys are hilarious. Like, I ask if you can hear me, and 3 of you are like, your hair looks really good. Your hair is getting so long. Does everybody want to make a comment about my hair before we go into the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, which is to send compassion toward those who are dying right now? It's like the most random thing. Everything is so random. I think we have to laugh. Wendy. All right, so actually, I do want to give you a little bit of context with the Mahamrityunjaya mantra. So it's a Shiva mantra, and Shiva is often thought of as the destroyer, but that's in the tradition that's not necessarily a Shaivite tradition. So in the Hindu tradition, many define themselves as Shaivites, and that means that they consider Shiva to be the kind of center of all consciousness. And if that's your orientation, then Shiva is not the destroyer, but Shiva is actually the doer of the 5 acts. So the 5 acts include destruction, but also include creation and preservation, and the grace that reveals and the grace that conceals. Those are the 5 acts. And Shiva is actually, in according to this tradition, which I'm very aligned with, though, you know, also, as many of you know, like very deeply influenced by Buddhism as well. But according to this tradition, the heart of Shiva is the heart of consciousness. So it's really, when we do any kind of a Shiva chant, we're basically, it's a chant to our own deepest heart. And this particular chant is a chant of kind of protection against fear, which is important right now because, you know, we're getting really spun in our own abstract minds. And there's, you know, in many cases, it's not abstract at all. You know, like in many cases, the risks are very real, and it's not at all abstract. And nonetheless, whether it's abstract or not, it's questionable to what extent fear is helpful. So that's a dance that we each get to navigate, because sometimes fear is extremely helpful and helps us to really protect ourselves and take necessary precautions. And but then, you know, how do we channel the fear into the precautions that are actually necessary and helpful, and then let it go so that we can actually be sane and be loving and be connected and experience joy and let life really run through us in the most beautiful possible way. So that's the hope here with this particular chant, right? It's all about remembrance. So go ahead and close your eyes and bring your attention to your breath. And we're going to start with 3 rounds of Om. And obviously everyone is muted, so you can practice this right along with me. And before we go into the chanting of Om, just take a second to get yourself settled in your seat. If you're not seated in a way that feels like it brings your spine into good alignment, then reconfigure. Feel the central channel. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarugamiva Vandhanam Mrityam Mokshiyam Amrita. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarugamiva Vandhanam Mrityam Mokshiyam Amrita. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarugamiva Vandhanam Mrityam Mokshiyam Amrita. And take a few long and deep breaths and just sit in the center of yourself and in the center of the heart consciousness. They say that the heart is the seat of the mind when the mind is settled, when the mind is in its deepest place of connection into the truth. So there's a way of taking refuge inside these practices and then allowing ourselves to extend any of the benefits of the practice out to all beings. And we do that from the beginning of the practice by consciously remembering the refuge. And the refuge is really just all about remembering our deepest intention for awakening and for that of all beings. So when we chant that Mahamrityunjaya chant, which is really traditionally to be sent out to people who have either lost loved ones, those who are ill, or those who are in the process of dying, or those who have passed, to help them on their journey. We can also send it, in a sense, more psychologically to the infinite changes that are happening within. So there are always karmas being burned away. And also karmas to be generated. So some of the things that might be causing you pain right now in your life might actually be, if you're conscious about them, karmas that are being burned away. So what are you in the process of releasing? What are you sitting in the center of? What pain has been coming through? You can let that chant be extended toward those places with it. And then when you feel ready, gently open your eyes. And let's come up to standing. Okay, so we're going to do some asana practice, and I'm going to try to set this up so that you can see me. All right, let's see if this works. I wish that I could be playing music because I feel like it's such a great support to have music playing while we practice asana. But as you might have figured out, for those of you that have done anything on Zoom lately, music just really creates a lot of chaos in terms of the audio. Like as soon as you try to put an audio track on behind you while you're teaching something or saying anything, it gets super weird. Or at least I haven't figured out the solution, but if any of you have, please let me know. Okay, just reconfiguring a little bit. Somebody sent me an email this morning and they were like, I can't figure out how to get on your session. Can you please, I'm sure you're busy preparing for it and getting your kids settled. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. As if I had time to prepare for anything. It's just fly by the seat of one's pants these days. So I'm gonna take this off. It's warming up. I'm gonna turn off this little heater. And we're gonna start with, namaste. We're gonna start with a wide angle forward fold. So legs open wide apart, hinge forward, bring your hands to the ground. If you have blocks, you can use them underneath your hands and just start to shift side to side. So we're gonna build up some heat in the body today. That's my intention anyhow. As I said earlier, I will always attempt to give you multiple approaches and options here so that you can have the level of practice that you want. But given that you are in the privacy of your own home, I also trust that you will take care of yourself and modify as you see fit. So this is just a, for me at least, pretty gentle way to begin. If it's intense for you, then you can certainly stay at center if that makes it easier, or just go really slowly and breathe. And then let's come back to center and come up and come right up into goddess pose, because these are days to remember the goddess. It's a way in which the goddess is having her way with us. And then we'll take the arms up into cactus arm position and deepen, and then we'll do a little bit of a lion's breath. So if you haven't done lion's breath before, it is a wonderful clearing, and it's maybe my favorite thing to teach to children because I find it hilarious. So teach it to the children in your life. You take a big inhalation, and as you exhale, you're gonna take your head back, throw your tongue out, and roll your eyes up, okay? So big in breath. Once again, big inhalation. And one more time. Bring the hands to the heart. And come up. So we need a lot of release these days, and that's what that is meant to be. I do hope that no one ever takes a screenshot of that. So we're going to turn the right foot to the right, sit down into warrior number 2. And turn the gaze out over the right arm. Back leg really strong and steady. Draw the low belly up, top chest area up, roll the shoulder heads a little bit back. And then go ahead and turn the palms up, bend the elbows a little bit, and try to move the shoulder heads deeply back so the chest is really broad. Okay? And your arms are engaged, like your biceps are firing there. And then come up and change sides. Sitting down into the bend of the front knee. Front shin should come more or less to vertical. Lengthen the tailbone down, draw the low belly up. Take a big inhalation here, curl back a little bit, and then turn the palms up. Bend the elbows ever so slightly. And as you're bending your elbows, you're not just like passively bending them. You're actually bringing the elbows down. Like I used to say, it's as if you have 2 giant beach balls underneath your elbows, and you're trying to squeeze them into your rib cage. Okay, so you're pulling the elbows in and drawing the shoulder blades into the back, and that should help the collarbones to broaden. Okay, and then slowly come up from there, release the arms down, take the hands back behind you, interlock the fingers, and just curl back a little bit. Okay, opening up the chest. As you're curling back, see if you can get your inner thighs to root back. And that's not going to happen intuitively. It's not an automatic action at all. So you have to squeeze your feet a little bit to the midline to activate the inner thighs at all. And then see if you can spiral them in and back. And then go ahead and release. Okay. Turn toward the front of your mat. Bring your hands down onto the ground. Press back into downward facing dog. And take a few moments in down dog, just pacing the heels toward the floor. And then when you're ready, release. And take a few cat rolls. Inhaling, opening up top chest. Exhaling, rounding the back. As you know, the breath should be through the nose. And it's tremendously valuable to bring your attention to the edges of the breath. It's probably one of the most important things for me about practice. Okay, next time you inhale and lengthen forward, I'm going to come up onto your knees, bring your hands back behind you, interlock your fingers, have a little bend in the elbows, and squeeze the elbows toward the midline. So for anyone that is spending a lot of time on the computer lately, the chest, the pecs are going to get closed. And what happens then also, maybe even worse, is the rhomboids are getting overstretched, and then they can get locked long, like locked into the lengthened, overstretched position. And that's just a disaster for the upper back. So this is a good way to rectify that. Okay, then go ahead and release that. Bring your right foot forward. So your rhomboids, in case you're not aware, most people are not, live back here between the shoulder blades, and they kind of go like this, like they call them Christmas tree muscles, from the spine to the shoulder blades. So we're gonna bring, I think I said right foot forward, and then we're gonna take the arms up into cactus and deepen back into it. So there's a little bit of a back bend happening, but I'm not curling back a lot. I mean, I'm pretty back bendy, so I could definitely curl back way more than this, but I'm trying to not. I'm trying to protect. So I'm keeping my core really strong, squeezing the shoulder blades toward each other a little bit and into the back. And arms are open wide, but try not to let my elbows go way back behind the shoulder heads, because I really want the shoulder heads to move back and down. And it doesn't help me that much if I throw the elbows back. If I throw the elbows back, then the shoulder heads actually pop forward. And then release that and switch. Okay, so for anybody who works on computers, or anybody who's doing gardening even, or nursing, or carrying children, I mean, really almost everything that we do in the world gets the shoulder heads to roll forward, you know, unless you happen to do all of your knitting with your hands back behind you or something of that sort, which you do not. So really stabilize through your core here, and then try to open up the chest and move the shoulder heads back. So they're usually going to roll forward in the course of regular life. This is the antidote. Shoulder blades draw in to the body, head slightly back. And then go ahead and release. And come up to standing. How are you guys doing? If anybody is having any issues, I will try to check in here and there. Somebody wants to know if there's going to be a recording. I'm going to try. Again, no promises. I'm trying not to promise anything. So we're going to come into a crescent pose and take the arms out in front with the palms turned toward each other. And then exhale, bring the knee forward. Inhale, extend back. So this is a little hard, definitely from a balance perspective. It's a little intense, but we're going to try to do 4 more like that for a total of 5. Exhaling, inhaling. Exhale, inhale. Just warming up. Uh-oh, I lost count. I think that was 5. And switch. Okay, so big in-breath here. Exhale. And then inhale as you reach back and land the foot. And if you need to go more slowly, go more slowly. If you can do it a little bit more quickly, that's great. Just make sure you're coordinating with your own breathing. So every time you exhale, you're pulling your ribs in. Okay, go back to the first side. Same thing again. Okay, big in breath. 5 more on this first leg. And switch. Every time you exhale, you're pulling the ribs in and drawing the pelvis into a posterior kind of scoop. You don't have to come all the way up onto that front leg. Like, you can keep your front leg bent the whole time, a little bit bent the whole time. Okay, and then when you're done with that, step forward and come into cactus arm position here. So just curling back a little bit. And exhale, bring the hands to the heart. Then inhale, come into chair pose. Exhale, bring the hands together to the heart. Inhale, take the arms up into cactus and lift your heels up off the ground a little bit. Exhale, bring the hands together at the heart. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. Exhaling. And then release into a forward fold. Keep your knees a little bit bent. If you happen to have blocks, then use them if you need them. Or you could use anything. I mean, you could use like a little table, an ottoman, whatever you've got handy there. If you're tighter in your hamstrings, this actually works super well with the hands significantly higher. So like up on the seat of a chair. You're going to inhale and take the right leg up and open up the hip. Exhale, release it down. Inhaling, taking the left leg up, opening up the hip. Exhaling, release it down. Keep going with the pace of your own breathing. It doesn't matter if your standing leg knee needs to bend. You can certainly keep that knee bent. Try not to let the ankle collapse, however. So in your standing leg, there's a real tendency for the arch to collapse and for the inner ankle to collapse. Try to draw it up. And then next time your left leg comes down, go ahead and keep it down. Bend the knees and soften into a little bit of a deeper forward fold. But bend your knees a lot, okay? Bend your knees a lot so that there's no strain on the low back. Drop the head. And then slowly bring yourself down and sit and hold on to the backs of the knees and open up the chest and curl back a little bit with the, go ahead and lift the feet up off of the ground. And if that doesn't work, you can keep your heels on the ground and just try to draw yourself up from there. So you're pulling your lumbar vertebrae up and into their natural curve. Take one more full long inhalation here. Exhale, release, put your feet on the floor. Press the hips up, lengthen through the tailbone as you reach the chest open. Press the head back, long through the back of the neck, and then ultimately press your head back and down. And then release. All right, I just want to talk for a moment about what they call skull loop. And I feel like I'm not 100% sure that I haven't already addressed this because I've taught so many classes in the last little bit that they've kind of blurred together. I'm not sure if I've addressed this in this series. But I'm just sitting right now in Virasana with my hips on a block. Okay, so you could sit, you know, flat in Virasana if you're happy like that, or you could sit in Vajrasana, which is this one. But I'm sitting like this because it's pleasant, and there's a place for that in asana. So we're going to take the hands behind the back of the neck, and as we do this, if you can see here, I'm kind of driving my thumbs into the traps in a very pleasant sort of way, and then fingers are interlaced. Sorry, I'm just going to put a hair tie in so you can see a little bit better. So the thumbs are kind of driven in to the base of the neck, into the traps. The fingers are interlaced. The pinky side of the hand is up there at the occipital ridge, supporting. And then I'm pressing the head gently back into my hands and drawing the throat in and back as I press the head back. So in my humble opinion, this is one of the best ways to resolve issues with the neck, particularly like, as I was talking about earlier, these muscles get really overstretched and locked long. And this is a great way to kind of restore their elasticity and to also get the head into its natural, the neck into its natural inward curve. Okay, so now we're going to come back into, what's that question? What's a shoulder head? Oh, good question. What's a shoulder head? This is a shoulder head. So right now I'm rolling the shoulder head forward, and now I'm rolling the shoulder head back. When I roll the shoulder head forward, this happens to be an internal rotation of the humeral head in the socket, in the acetabulum, and then this is rolling the shoulder head back. And I often talk about rolling the shoulder head back. Okay, back to your mat, and come up again into crescent. So crescent is like warrior number one, but the heel in crescent is lifted. You can also do warrior one. So whichever is actually warrior one might work better for you. Probably for the majority of people, warrior one will actually work better than crescent because we're going to take hold of the back of the head, and that makes for kind of interesting balance. So you're holding over the back of the head and pressing the head back into your hands, and that's going to initially open up the throat a little bit, And then you want to draw the hyoid bone, the Adam's apple area, in. Back of the neck is long. I just have a little pop in the back of my neck, which is so very pleasant. Very subtle little pop, which lets me know that it was slightly out of alignment. And it needed this particular combination of forces in order to align. It needed the support, the engagement, and the particular position. Go ahead and switch legs. Okay, so stabilize. As I said before, it's probably better for most of us to be in warrior one footing as opposed to crescent. And we're pressing the head back into the hands and really deeply supporting the neck. So there's just a physiological, kind of structural, anatomical benefit of this, because we're getting our cervical into its natural curve, engaging the muscles of that support the cervical, the extensor muscles, engaging them, and then also supporting from the front by drawing the Adam's apple in and a little bit back, even while the chin is slightly lifted. You might get a little stretch in your triceps as you reach your elbows up toward the ceiling. And then go ahead and release. Okay, and just notice how that feels. So what I want you to do next, well, let's see. I want to just show you something, and you may or may not have the, it's complicated, but I'm going to do it anyway, because it's so good. So I'm bringing this chair over here so that I can show you something. So if you happen to have a couch or a chair in your midst, then go to it. Go to your chair and sit on it like this, like in a little squat. This is not actually the perfect chair because it's not totally stable. So hopefully I won't have a real mishap here. But I'd be much more comfortable with a really solid armchair or a couch. But this will be fine because I can distribute the weight pretty well. So I've got my hands in that same position, and I'm going to curl back over the back of the chair. Okay, so I'm curling back, and I'm also pushing pretty firmly into my feet, and I feel pretty safe that I'm not going to topple over backwards. But if I weren't, conscious of that, conscious of how to distribute the weight here, it might feel a little bit sketchy. So just be aware of that. If you're on a couch, it's great because you don't have to think about it, because presumably your couch is heavy enough, it's not going to topple over. So just do that a couple of times, kind of curl back. And for me, the edge of the chair here is driving into the shoulder blades in a little bit of an intense way, but I happen to like that. And not because I'm masochistic. I am mostly not masochistic. But because it just is exactly what my body needs, is that amount of intensity. But I've definitely seen a lot of people who don't want that much intensity, and even with a regular couch with a much rounder back, they'll want a pillow there, okay? So then after you do that, which helps, if those muscles have gotten locked short, it really helps to, if they've gotten locked long, it really helps to kind of bring the muscle fibers kind of back into deep, good relationship with each other. So now we're going to take the feet open and let the trunk drop forward. And this, you could maintain length here, so you're just stretching straight out. I should actually be more at the edge of the chair. So I'm going to bring my sitting bones more to the edge of the chair. So you could keep your spine long, you're stretching straight out into the crown of the head, or you could drop. You could really release. Drop your head down, hands on the ground, just let go completely. Okay, now go ahead and come up. If you want to stay on your chair, you can, because we're going to do this one where we go side to side. So you could stay on your chair or your couch. I'm going to move the chair away because I want to do it a little bit, I want a little bit more vigor and intensity in my practice. So I'm going to take the feet wide, hands on the knees, and twist side to side. And even here, I can feel a little bit more length and spaciousness all the way through the spine into the upper back and into the cervical, which means that as I'm twisting, it's there's no strain for me in turning the head, and I can take the head slightly back, which is magical. And if that doesn't feel good, then you can just you can keep your chin more tucked. Okay, and then go ahead and come up and make your way back into downward facing dog. And in your downward facing dog, take the right leg up and back and open up the hip. And as you exhale, bring that leg down. Then take the left leg up and open up the hip. And you want to try to keep the shoulders relatively square. Exhale, bring that leg down. Now come forward into plank with an in-breath. And then as you exhale, lower yourself down onto your elbows. Okay, and you're here in forearm plank. Stay there for a second. I just realized that this is blocking your view. Okay, so I want you, that was a good opportunity for me to take a little break. And you can take a break whenever you need to. But you want to make sure while you're here that you're not at all collapsed through your core. So you're long through the low back, tailbone's lengthening back. Ribs are fully drawn into the core. So your ribs are pulling up into the body. At the same time, the thighs are pressing up toward the ceiling. The tailbone's lengthening back. And the crown of the head is like, it's not completely lengthened forward because that would cause cervical strain. It's kind of like you're trying to do the same thing that you did when you were supporting your head. You're trying to lengthen and engage a little bit through the musculature of the cervical, but not too much, and then pull up a little bit through the throat, and then release down. And you can either be here in Sphinx, or if you wish, you can press yourself up into Cobra. Roll the shoulder heads gently back. Broaden and open across the top chest. Draw the hands toward each other. Take another full and long inhalation. Exhale, release. Press back. Child's pose. Knees a little wide. Soften down. Stretch arms out in front. Let the head go. Okay, then slowly bring yourself up. And I'm going to turn toward the camera here. I want you to take your right knee out to the right and circle it. And then change directions. And it's good, this camera keeps me a little bit honest. I'm always telling people to keep the shoulders square without really knowing if mine are fully square. Go ahead and release that and change sides. So you want your fingers open wide, bases of the index fingers rooted, hands pulled gently toward the midline. Go ahead and switch directions, circle the other way. You should activate that outer hip in a nice way, a little bit intense, but hopefully good. And then release it. Go back to the first leg. Either continue rolling or knee straight out to the side and then extend out, push into the inner heel, bend and release. This is kind of intense, left leg now, so you don't want to do it, hold it for too long. You can either roll the knee around in a circle or fire hydrant position, extend out, flex the ankle, bend the knee, and lower. Now go back into downward facing dog. Face the heels toward the ground a few times. And then from down dog, when you're ready, no rush, step the right foot forward. So you may end up wanting a block in this position. So we're going to twist toward the right knee. And if this feels like a lot, then just put your hand on a block or whatever you have around there. And actually, you want your left arm a little bit externally rotated. So with my block, I'm going to turn the block a little bit and turn it slightly out. And if your hand is on the floor, then you might turn your fingers slightly out, just so that the arm is externally rotated, which is going to take the shoulder head back. You definitely want your shoulder head to move back and down away from the ear. Press the front foot, your right foot presumably, into the floor. Open up the chest, curl back. Okay, and go ahead and release. I never know if you guys can hear me well when I'm turned away from the camera there, so, or the microphone. Okay, go ahead and switch legs. Hopefully you're getting enough information. And if not, you just get to listen to your own body and to your own breath, and that's more important anyway than anything anyone could ever tell you. So you're turning and opening toward the front knee. The hip is lifted a little. Sitting bone's definitely a bit higher than the back of the knee. Open up the chest. Try to get your right shoulder head back. So assuming you're twisting to the left, your right hand's on the floor. The right hand angles slightly out. Shoulder head moves back. Chest is broadening and the head ultimately moves a little bit back as well. If it doesn't want to, then don't make it. Okay, go ahead and release. Step forward, come into a squat. I'm gonna turn a little bit toward you. So in your squat, I'm gonna turn all the way toward you. Your feet are probably gonna turn out a little bit because your knees are turning out, so your feet need to turn out. Your knees need to track over your feet, okay? And you can stay down in this pose, deep and low, or you can lift your hips up. Oh, good, thanks, Lauren. Lauren says sound is great, wonderful. You can lift your hips up. This is kind of a little bug pose and definitely an acquired taste. We're gonna take the arms out to the sides at first and try to lift the shoulder heads up again. So these shoulder heads right here are lifting up, shoulder blades are moving down the back. And again, your head is extending out so the neck is long, supported by the engagement of the extensors. The head's just a little bit lifted, but the throat is lifting too to support. And then go ahead and release, lower down, sit all the way down, take your hands back behind you. Sorry, there's a little ruckus going on outside in my yard. I don't know if I've told you guys about the pergola saga. The pergola saga is what happens when someone cannot be contained inside the four walls of the home. And so they decide to build a pergola in the backyard, right next to the shed where you film your practices. That's what we've been dealing with. But it's amazing, Gabrielle built a pergola in 3 days, so that's a good thing. And if you don't know what a pergola is, because I've heard that pergola is not a real common word, it's kind of like a gazebo. And the light right now in this room is going completely crazy. And I might need to fix it a little bit so that you can still understand what's going on. But here we're gonna lift the hips up, lengthen the tailbone, top chest area opening, lengthen through the back of the neck, press the head slightly down, draw the throat in. And notice how you're doing the same thing here that I was talking about, hopefully with a bit more awareness than when we first did this, okay? So then release. All right, and now I really do need to figure out what to do about this incredible light show. I'm gonna try this angle. Might have to change everything around, but we'll see. All right, so now what I want you to do is come up and, yeah, I think that's fine. So come up, take the legs open wide apart, hinge forward and down. Prasarita Padottanasana once again, okay? And bend the knees ever so slightly, drop down. We're gonna try to stretch the shoulders here. So this doesn't work for everyone, but we've done a lot to kind of support the neck and open the neck. So see if you can take the arms up, interlock the fingers, and drop the head down. So you really may need to bend the knees and draw the low belly forward out of the hips to support the spine and lengthening. And obviously, if it doesn't work to take the arms up, then just keep your hands down on the ground. Be reasonable with yourself. Okay, a couple more full and long breaths. And then when you're ready, come all the way up. Let's do Trikonasana. So turn your right foot to the right, open arms out to the sides, extend out, lower slowly down. You usually would begin in this pose with your hand just below the knee, okay? And that may be where you stay. And if you have any issues with this upper shoulder, you could have the hand on the hip, and that's totally fine. The most important thing in terms of protecting yourself is you don't get overly excited about things and go too far. You want to think about your asana practice as something that's going to support you for your entire life. So if you screw yourself up in one practice because you got a little overzealous, then that's not really in support of the greater project. So really stabilize in the front leg and then slowly come up and change sides. So stability in the front leg is really key. You want to be drawing up on that quad. The kneecap is pulling up. The thigh bone is plugging in to the acetabulum, which is that hip socket. There's a little bit of external rotation in this leg. That means the outer hip's going to be tacking back. So you can open the arms, slowly lower down. Hand can begin on the shin. Take care of the shoulder of your right arm. And then if you want to lower down, you can. My stance in triangle is pretty open. This is definitely one of the poses that I feel really happy in. And so I have a pretty wide open stance. But you might need that back foot in closer in order to feel stable here. Okay, so do what works for your body. Don't get too, don't get too overly ambitious. And then go ahead and release it. Bring your hands down to the ground. Just come to the front of your mat. Okay, I have, let's see, you probably have your, I don't know which leg you have forward. I have my right foot forward. So you can get your right foot forward. And you're in a low lunge now. And have your hands on the inside of the knee and shift a little bit from side to side. And take a few long and deep breaths here. And just notice how you're doing, because we're going to go into a pretty deep stretch here in a moment. And again, if it's not, this won't be extremely pleasant probably for any of us. Quad stretches never are, but it shouldn't feel like it's breaking you to pieces. So we have lots of different ways to approach this. So one of the ways to approach it is just to take your hand onto your right knee and then to stay here. Okay, and then another way is to reach back and hold on to your back foot. And this has very similar dynamics to that twisted raised lunge we did earlier, in that we're pushing with the front foot. We're not collapsing the hips down. We're scissoring the legs toward each other. And then we're curling back. And you might be able to put your elbow down onto the floor, your left elbow. And if it gets down onto the floor, then in some ways it's going to be an easier opening. And release it. And let's switch sides. I didn't have you hold that for very long because it's intense and we're not together where I can kind of be more attuned to how everyone is doing. So in some ways, shorter holds are better. So we just begin by easing in. And this is kind of like, if you've ever gotten a massage where they do these like long, lugubrious strokes, it's called effleurage. It's a very common technique in Swedish massage. This is like the effleurage at the beginning of the deep tissue. So before you go into the maw, or you kind of go for the gusto, you want to make sure everything's kind of softened up. So you could begin now just by twisting toward that left knee and opening up the chest. See how that feels? If you want to go for the deeper opening, you're reaching back and grabbing hold of that back foot. Pull the feet toward each other. Notice what your experience is of this. If you feel like you're breaking to bits, then back off. You are you are that Shiva consciousness of the heart. So you are responsible for, to a large degree, how things are arising, and you get to create, preserve. You also get to destroy. So you might need to destroy the pose in order to preserve yourself. You might need to, and destruction is an interesting way to what's the word, to define it. It's really not destruction. The term actually means reabsorption. That's like a whole kind of teaching in and of itself. Go ahead and release. And come down onto your belly. So just to clarify, we'll just be in Sphinx for a second, or you can do Cobra. So in the 5 acts, which I referenced at the beginning, there's creation, preservation, destruction, and there are 2 acts of grace, revealing grace and concealing grace. So creation is actually emanation. Preservation is pretty much preservation. Destruction is actually reabsorption. So at the level of the psyche, okay, let's go ahead and come up and come to sitting and come into, let's see what time it is. Come into Baddha Konasana, soles of the feet together, knees open wide apart. I'm gonna come a little bit closer now. So, let's see. So at the level of consciousness, if we want to just go into what these teachings are really talking about, according to the Shaivites, according to the Tantra, reality is co-created. So it's created by what lives in our shared perceptions of things. So that that kind of pop psychology teaching, you create your own reality, it's not quite right. You know, we don't totally create our own reality. We co-create reality with each, you know, as a community. We can weave reality into being. But we're each a locus of consciousness that has these 5 acts as part of our potential. So we have the freedom to, from consciousness, emanate an experience. We also have the freedom to preserve an experience. It gets preserved inside the heart of consciousness. And we have the freedom to reabsorb an experience. So now go ahead and this is a weird version of Baddha Konasana, but I want you to lean to your right. And as you're leaning out over that leg, twist a little bit. Okay, and just notice, you know, what has been arising in your experience. And it may, you know, it may not be pleasant, but as I said in the beginning, sometimes when we're inside something that's really unpleasant, it's because we're actually bearing loving witness to a karma coming up to the surface. So one of the things that I've been noticing a lot lately is like my partner and I have been driving each other crazy. And I've been having all of this like intensity around the fact that I have so many things to do and he doesn't, right? And so that's painful unless I'm aware of the fact that that's a karma that is rising up to the surface. So it's a story, and it, you know, stories are not necessarily true, nor are they necessarily untrue. But it's also a samskara. It also has an energetic quality to it. So go ahead and take the legs open wide apart. If this is not a comfortable pose for you, and it's not for a lot of people, then get a cushion, or you can do this with your legs up the wall, wide apart. It's kind of nice on a cushion. Or you might have a blanket or a couple of blankets, whatever you got is great. And then just try to sit up tall, okay? And whenever we're sitting, we're just creating this length and spaciousness through the spine. And as soon as we create that length and spaciousness through the spine, then we can feel into the samskaras, into the kind of energetic imprints that are underneath our own experience. You know, so the surface level reality is there. You know, there's some kind of not, you know, some sort of indisputable things in your surface level reality. It's like if you have little kids, you are homeschooling, presumably. And that creates an, you know, added level of pressure. But then the emotional tone that you're experiencing is co-created by your samskaras and the samskaras of those in your midst. And sometimes it's helpful to think that all of that which you're perceiving is arising for you as opposed to it happening to you. Okay, go ahead and come up from here. Some of you probably need to do a shavasana, and some of you are going to come into a seated meditation. So I'll let you choose. And we're going to just start to settle in, and I'll try to kind of complete that thought. But make sure you're warm enough and happy for your meditation, for your shavasana, for whatever you're doing. You want to be really comfortable. Okay, so take time to get yourself set up. Turn on all the heat. It's gotten cold in here. Try to stay for the rest of this, you guys. This shavasana or the meditation is really, it's not really, you know, it's not dispensable. It's a very important part of the practice because it's the time when we get to be with everything that has arisen, you know, like letting go of the effort of the practice. We get to be inside the energy that's underneath. So settle yourself. And just ask yourself, what would it be like to totally trust the perfection inside this experience, even if it's really painful? So whatever you personally are contending with, and what we are contending with at a global level, the level of our shared humanity. What would it be like to receive this information that's coming in from the mystic as feedback? So at the level of your personal reality, what is arising? You may have had a lot of resistance to whatever has been coming up for you emotionally. You know, if you've been in a lot of grief or in a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety, if you've had discord in your relations, it may be that you have made yourself wrong or made somebody else wrong for how they're feeling, how they're experiencing it, whatever it is. What would it be like if you just perceived it as a karma that's coming to the surface? A seed that has been collectively planted a long time ago, not necessarily your own karma, not necessarily their own karma, just something that's inside the human family that hasn't been digested. So we co-create. Our karmas are shared. And we each have our own little locus of consciousness through which we're perceiving whatever is arising. And when we can soften for a moment and just feel the intensity of it, feel the grief of it, feel our disappointment at a non-cognitive level. Interface it with it a little bit more intimately. Breathe it in. And breathe out compassion for yourself and for all beings who have ever experienced a similar quality of difficulty. Remember that you're not alone. So whatever you have going on, if you're feeling really neurotic, if you're feeling like your addictions are surging up, if you're feeling a lot of sadness, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're scared, trust your heart. Breathe it in. Try to interface with it, be with it more intimately, not at the level of cognitive mind. Just be with that raw energy of it. Really get in there with your own heart. Feel what's happening for you. Breathe out compassion for yourself and for all beings who have ever struggled with this particular quality of difficulty. And take a few more long and deep, steady breaths there. Just notice where your mind is. See if you can let that breath touch down into the place underneath the mind, underneath the cognitive level of mind. Let the breath touch down into the deeper, energetic, emotional experience. And give yourself a loving witness. And if you're laying down in Shavasana, slowly roll over onto one side and then bring yourself gradually up to sitting, no rush. And bring the hands together at the heart. Gratitude for the practice. Gratitude toward all practitioners, those of us that are here together today and those throughout history, all the lineages of grace. Gratitude toward all of our people. All of our people are our teachers. Gratitude toward oneself for the willingness. Namaste. Okay. So I'm going to stop the recording if I can.